What's going on, everybody? Today we got our Match Day 2 review. All games have been played, and we're going to talk about every one, how we did in our predictions as well, and some problems a couple of teams are having. So, let's jump into it. Everton-West Brom, it finishes 5-2. We picked 3-0. We picked the margin right, but 5-2 in the end. West Brom, of course, taking an early lead. Leveled it up, Everton, and then the red card came, and it kind of just went downhill from there for West Brom. As we've discussed before, they're going to have a difficult time, West Brom. 1, scoring goals, and 2, in general, defending Premier League quality. They got the early goal they were looking for. You know, Everton level it up, and then you get silly, red card, and your chances of a result go right out the window. Everton end up with 5, but, you know, you can't afford to be doing that too much. And then Everton, of course, keeping their good start to the season up. A win over Tottenham and a win over West Brom to start. The midfield is really, really clicking in relatively quickly, and it looks like their system is starting to work itself out a little bit, and they look pretty good. And, you know, they go into a couple of winnable games. They have Crystal Palace, Brighton, and then before they play Liverpool. So, I mean, they could have 12 points from 12 if they keep things up. Next, Leeds United 4, Fulham 3. Now, this is going to be Leeds all year, isn't it? They're going to play open football. They are going to force you into open football. They are going to score goals. They are going to concede goals. It is going to be a wild year. Fulham, 4-1 down, did well to fight back, but they're really going to have a tough time along with West Brom, and it just continues to look that way for the London side. Couldn't quite get there in the end, but, you know, they're early on here. You know, a couple of tough teams. They have Villa next. They got to get something there before they play Wolves and Sheffield United. Though they got to get a couple points from those 3 games. As we said, they haven't started particularly well. 7 goals conceded already. They would obviously like to be a little bit better than that. They need to be better at the back. They're looking to bring in a new defender before the window closes. They'll hopefully look to, you know, hang their hat on that a little bit, but at the moment it's going to be very, very tough for them. And of course, Leeds, we've talked about it. They have the quality to go out and attack you and score tons of goals, but they're also going to concede goals. So it may just be on the day kind of stuff for Leeds. You know, are they clicking going forward on the day? Because it seems like conceding goals is going to travel with you. You know, defense always travels with you. It's one of those things where if you are poor defensively, every once in a while you may come up with, you know, a clean sheet here and there, but most of the time defense travels with you. When you're going forward, that doesn't always come with you. There are games where it just doesn't click, and those are games that they may end up losing, but they're going to give it a good effort, aren't they? 4-3, the final there. Crystal Palace 3, Manchester United 1. The quote-unquote shock of the weekend. We picked 2-0, but we talk about United all the time. The defense, it just isn't good enough. It just is not good enough. And everyone outside of United, even people inside United, know that this defense isn't good enough. And the hierarchy are stuck in a really weird spot. They have put a ton of money into this defense. If you look at this defense now, I believe it was $50 million for Wan-Bissaka. I'm not sure on that, but he's their only really good defender. David De Gea is filled with mistakes still, though he played pretty well against Palace. Maguire, $80 million. Lindelof, $30 million. Shaw, $30 million. It's £140 million there that is just not good enough. And I know they'll be itching to get Maguire into a spot where people don't question him anymore, but I think everyone outside of Manchester United, and maybe inside as well, know that they were scammed a little bit paying $80 million for Maguire. He's not a brilliant center back. He just isn't. Definitely not worth the money. Lindelof was definitely shown up twice. He's just not a great defender. He reads the game pretty well, but you can stand him up and go at him, and he really get stuck not knowing what to do, and it's a bad trait to have as a center back. As for Palace, someone we picked to struggle. We picked them to stay up, but to struggle. 6 points. They always start well. It seems they're going to do it again. And I remember seeing the stat, 5 games away to Manchester clubs in a row now. 3 for United, 2 for City, where they have been unbeaten. 5 in a row at those 2 grounds, which is incredibly impressive. But when you concede early against Crystal Palace, you are going to have trouble bringing them back. And of course, the penalty, I didn't think it was a penalty myself. De Gea was barely off the line, but off the line. My thing with VAR is not you, I'm not speaking to anyone specifically, but when you ask for this, they are going to be incredibly tight with everything. When you ask for VAR, when you don't ask for VAR, you're going to get some decisions that you aren't going to like, that maybe even be wrong. But when you get VAR, they're going to go inch for inch, and he was millimeters off the line, but he was off. And that's what you get when you get VAR. There is no in between here. You either get VAR where you are going to complain when they do little itty bitty decisions that may be right, and then you're still going to get a couple who are wrong, or you are going to get human error on offsides and things like that may be wrong, but it's not as scrutinized because it's just a person running back there. Now you have the computer looking at it. Sometimes they're still going to get things wrong, and you're still going to get the complaints. So this has always been coming with VAR. None of this will ever be perfect, but this is the world we live in now. De Gea was off his line. Whether the first one was a penalty or not, I don't think so, but United didn't deserve anything from this game anyway, so I'm not too fussed. Next, Arsenal West Ham 2-1. We picked 3-1. It finishes 2-1. Late goal for Arsenal now. We've said since the beginning, Arsenal are going to have a tough time breaking teams down, a really tough time. And West Ham there, between Arsenal's goal and the end of the first half, West Ham had 10 shots to Arsenal's 0. They hit the post a couple of times. They could have won that game. It was very much luck for Arsenal to get out of that game. I struggle to see where Arsenal makes the leap at the moment from a okay team to a good team. Arsenal know how to set up against big teams. They know what they want to do when they play teams like City, Liverpool, Chelsea. When it comes to teams like West Ham, Crystal Palace, Southampton, are they going to figure it out? I do not know. It doesn't seem to me like they have the midfield to do it. They're going to try and bring in a midfielder, but even a defensive midfielder or someone like Partey, a player is going to sit back and really defend here. I still don't know if that's going to solve their problems. I think they need someone a little bit more creative and I think they need someone better than Ceballos. Ceballos is a pretty good player, but I don't think he's at the standard where they want him to be. He was toward the end of last season, but once again, he started off this season not so great. So we'll see what happens going forward. Arsenal play Liverpool next, of course, which is something that they would like. But Arsenal's issues are going to come against the other teams. They play Sheffield United after that, then Man City, of course, then Leicester. These are teams that they would like to play. United, wow, they have a really tough start to the schedule. But it's when they get into these teams against Aston Villa here after that. Leeds are going to be open. Wolves, they're going to have a tough time breaking down some of the lower-end teams, and that's where you feel that their dropping points will come. It almost happened here against West Ham, a team who's going to struggle this year. It's going to be very, very difficult for Arsenal going forward. As for West Ham, a much better showing than it was last week, but they are going to have to start picking up points at some point. 0 for 2 here, and their schedule doesn't really get easier. They have Wolves, Leicester, Tottenham. That's Manchester City. God, they have a tough start too. My goodness. Liverpool after that. Wow. West Ham could theoretically go into this game against Fulham in November and have no points. That is a terrifying thought if you're a West Ham fan. But they did play better, which is good. The problem is, what will morale be like in a couple weeks if they lose all these games, which they could definitely end up losing. It'll be tough. We picked them to go down this year. We'll see how it goes going forward. Next, we have Tottenham and Southampton. An early goal for Southampton, and they got off to where they wanted to get off to, and then it was just the Heung-min Son and Harry Kane show after that. They were just playing into exactly what Southampton doesn't want. And Southampton at the moment seem to me to be a team where they're trying to work their way into an identity, and at the moment they are being torn apart at the back. They play their two center backs back, their fullbacks go way up the pitch, the midfielders go high up the pitch, almost like City do, where they let the fullbacks roam and the two midfielders outside of the deep lying player there, like Fernandinho sits in front of the back too, and then the other players really move forward. They seem to be doing that type of football without that kind of talent, so they're just constantly open, and almost all the goals came right over the top. They just over the top, in and behind. You can't play like that when you don't have the talent to hold up at the back. I thought Southampton were going to have a good year this year. They haven't started particularly well. Defensively, they're just going to have to make some adjustments. It's just how it's going to have to be. Newcastle 0, Brighton 3. We picked a Newcastle win in this one. This is probably the only one we got really wrong. Brighton looked really good last week, and we talked about this last week. They looked really good playing Chelsea. Very unfortunate to lose that game. Newcastle played well playing against West Ham, but once again, Newcastle had one of those games where nothing seems to be happening, and they have too many of those. And it looked like maybe they were going to get off the mark. They played West Ham really well. They played good football, created chances, and it looked like maybe they might do it. But they just couldn't do anything. They weren't getting anything done, and Brighton were moving the ball all over the park. And Brighton are going to have a really good year if this start is anything to be indicated by. They're going to play United next week. I think they're going to get a result. They play Everton after that. Possible result. At some point, they're going to start playing teams where they're going to beat. They're going to play Crystal Palace soon, West Brom. I think they're going to have a really, really good year, and it just needs a little bit of confidence, and that's what one of those things have done, or that's what this result, I think, to me, has done. They played really well against Chelsea. I think the confidence has shown just a little bit, and they took it into this week and took it to Newcastle, and they are going to take it to teams this year. They are going to go at teams. They are going to play their football, and everything at the moment seems to be going through the right back, Lamptey, an excellent, excellent player on the right, and they just look really, really good, Brighton. Newcastle, on the other hand, one of their trademark games where they just don't seem interested. Nothing really gets done. It's worrying because sometimes they come up with really good results. Sometimes they play like they did against Brighton. At some point, you got to get some consistency. Next, we have Chelsea-Liverpool, 2-0 to Liverpool. An excellent result for Liverpool, this. If they can beat Arsenal next week, they would have had a really, really good start to the season. Of course, all the question marks around this game. If Chelsea closed the gap, they were playing probably how they wanted to. They set up to kind of hit Liverpool on the break, and they did a couple of times. They were definitely threatening. But, you know, a couple of dilly-dallies here, and they didn't really threaten that much in terms of shots on goal. Liverpool had all the ball, weren't creating a ton of chances, and then out of nowhere, Mane was through. Christensen brought him down. If Christensen hadn't brought him down, Mane would have definitely gotten to that. He just had to get a touch onto it, and it was an open goal. Kepa came flying out, wasn't getting there, and then after that, Thiago came onto the pitch, and it was just domination from Liverpool for the next 35-ish minutes. They had a chance or two toward the end. Of course, the penalty save, but in reality, Liverpool were far the better team in the second half. Of course, red card influenced, but there's still a bit of a gap here between Liverpool and Chelsea. And we will talk about this until we are blue in the face. Obviously, the defense is still an issue. They spent all that money, and the defense is still an issue. Now, Thiago Silva is still to come in, and Ben Chilwell is still to come in, of course. We'll see about Thiago Silva, but I don't think Chilwell is a massive, massive upgrade on someone like Alonso. And as I said, we'll see with Thiago Silva. He's a short center back in a league like this. So we'll see how that goes forward. He's obviously very experienced, not the quickest. So we'll see how he fits in. But Chilwell, to me, isn't a massive, massive upgrade on Alonso. So I wonder how good defensively they're still going to be. If Thiago Silva doesn't work out, they're going to have a tough season at the back. Kepa's making mistakes, though they have a new goalkeeper coming in. So Chelsea still have plenty of room to grow. But that gap is still seemingly there. And then Liverpool seem to turn it on whenever they feel like it. Came out in the second half, and they were relentless. All game, they were really, really good winning the ball back. The press was excellent most of the game. Second half, obviously, down a man, Chelsea, they went for the kill really, really quickly. The pressing was on. The second goal, of course, came from that Kepa mistake, but that had been coming right since the beginning of the game. Mane got close 2 or 3 times, and then eventually just got to it, finished it off, finished the game off. Alisson with a good save on a Jorginho penalty. A lot has to go wrong for Jorginho to miss a penalty. He has to, 1, not put it in the corner. 2, the goalkeeper has to wait until the ball is kicked to make a move. And then, of course, you have to guess the right way. So a lot has to go wrong for Jorginho to miss a penalty, and Alisson did very, very well. Guessed the right way, and then, of course, waited till the very end to make the move, and then Jorginho didn't put it in the corner. It's, as we said, it's very difficult. Jorginho is a very good penalty taker and is a very good save. But Liverpool will be delighted. A win over Newcastle next week, or a win over Arsenal next week will put them in a really good spot to start this season. Next, we have Leicester and Burnley, and Leicester continue their good start to the season with another 4 here against Burnley. Burnley, this is their first game, so I'm not going to judge them too much, but they cannot go around conceding these goals all year long. Already, they're kind of working with a very thin squad. If they start giving up their identity, it'll be very, very tough. But as I said, I'm not going to judge Burnley too much on this. We picked the game to be 2-1 to Leicester, 4-2 in the end. Leicester look very good, creating goals at the moment at will. 7 now in 2 games, looking very, very good. Next, we have Aston Villa, Sheffield, an early sending off for Sheffield United, and that kind of doomed them, though. They're really, really good defensively. Their shape was excellent. They missed a penalty as well. So Sheffield United could have had something from this. They really shot themselves in their own foot, and they've done that twice in a row now. A slow start against Wolves, and then they kind of picked up and made a game of it. Too little, too late, and then here, 12 minutes in, a sending off. Not great. Aston Villa, on the other hand, I actually don't think they played particularly well. They got the goal from a corner, and they were dominant, obviously, with the ball. But they don't look like they have an identity in terms of moving the ball forward. So I kind of worry a little bit about that. This is their first game of the year, so I'm not going to go crazy and, think about it and overthink about it like that. But if that's how they're going to play going forward for the rest of the year, they are going to struggle. And finally, Wolves, Manchester City, 3-1 to the champions. No, not to the champions, to the want-to-be champions this year. They're going to come out firing, and they look like they were going to run away from Wolves. 2-0 at halftime, and they were creating chance after chance. It could have been 4 or 5. But then they kind of took their foot off the gas. I'm going to assume that's what that was. And then for the rest of the game, it was all Wolves. And then right at the end, they grabbed the late goal, last kick of the game kind of thing. They grabbed the third. But that second half was worrying for Manchester City. That defensive partnership, it's going to take a little bit to get better, or they're going to, maneuver it around. Wasn't that great. It was a little bit shaky. The second half was really worrying from City, and then you watch the first half, and it was really good. It was something about this team last year where it was very similar to this, where they go through games and you wonder how they lose matches at all, and then they play games where they don't create or they don't finish anything, and they look really, really bad defensively. So we'll watch that as they go. They have a pretty difficult start to the season. Obviously, away to Wolves, a good result there, great result really. And then they play Leicester, and then they're away to Leeds, and then they're home to Arsenal. So it's a very difficult start for Manchester City. So they're going to need to see if they can fix that relatively quickly before they drop points here. I mean, they play Liverpool in November. They'd obviously like to be at peak form then. But it was a very mixed start for Manchester City, but obviously a really good result against a tough team, Wolves, who didn't. And it was just a tale of two halves here. I mean, that's just what it was. First half, Wolves, they barely had a shot. And then the second half, they were creating and creating and creating, and then couldn't quite grab the second goal. Had a couple of chances they really should have put away, and then were beaten at the end of it here. So, again, a very Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing from both teams here. And both teams will look at this game and think, one, what could have been, and two, that could have been really bad as well. So Manchester City obviously got the points. Wolves won't be too upset with their second half performance, but they'll be upset with the first, and City will be delighted with their first, delighted with the win, but I think a little bit worried about their second half performance. So we'll see as they go forward. It'll be a fun year, but yeah, not too bad. There new signings still to come in, new signings still to gel. I mean, Kai Havertz has not had the greatest start at Chelsea. Thiago had a really good game for Liverpool. Some players who, just coming into their sides, not playing particularly well. Some playing pretty well. Donny van de Beek the other day came on, played well. So it's obviously a lot to go through, but this should be a fun year, and it should heat up relatively quickly. As I've said, Brighton play United next week. That should be tight. Manchester City play Leicester. Liverpool play Arsenal. So it heats up really, really quickly. And it should be a fun week next week, guys. But that is going to be it. I hope you folks, of course, have enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more. And peace.